says, then you officially started. And greetings. It is 12 noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. where I am, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Mike Blinder. I'm publisher of EMP Magazine. This is one of the many, we call them sponsored webinars, where we allow our marketing partners to help inform, educate, and enlighten the ENP audience about better ways to find sustainability in news publishing. That's our mission at ENP. We try to talk to the executives that have three purposes. It's on my desk. I've had it ever since 2019 when I did my due diligence to become publisher. Did I want to do this thing or not? And the three things we focus on at ENP is someone who has to craft news, or journalism or content, someone who needs to find an audience for that content, and someone who needs to monetize that audience. And I have a feeling this is going to be a very insightful session based on a number of reasons. But before we get into it, I want to do a little housekeeping, if I may. You are on Zoom. At the bottom of your Zoom window, there is a chat. Don't raise your hand because we're not going to watch that, and don't do the Q&A. I want you to use the chat room throughout this webinar. And this is one thing that Zoom always does. It defaults the chat to host and panelists, which is me, Joe, and Jeremy. But I want you to chat to everybody, even if you yell at us, the panelists, because I want this to be an open dialogue. If someone from the audience has better thoughts on this or wants to argue a premise or offer some advice, please do. We like an open chat room going, and buried in that chat room right now is Lee Batchlet, very close friend, someone I've known too long, who's Lee's in there, and he's in charge of a lot of the things that CherryRoad is doing and a lot of their innovation. He will answer questions in there, and he's part of that environment. And I'm going to try to keep an eye on it as well and pose your questions to our panelists so they don't have to keep an eye on it. But here's the challenge. It defaults to the panelists. You got to switch to everyone. So I'd like you to do me a favor now, just to test that you're following this. I want you to go down to chat. I want you to go to everyone and say, hey, maybe the city you're in, and hello. So you already have it set to that host and everyone. So now we're going to get started. I finished up all that cool stuff. For decades, newspapers production has been built around larger press runs, centralized printing facilities, transportation networks that made very good economic sense at scale. But today, publishers are facing a whole new reality. Press runs are shrinking. Transportation costs continue to rise. Skilled production labor is really hard to find. It's true. And what we have now for many small rural communities, the economics of traditional newspaper production are basically becoming very difficult to sustain. It's hard to find a darn press. You have no idea how many times at EMP I get an email, someone saying, is there a press near me? And they're shrinking. I mean, it's just amazing. Print remains, though, massively important. It remains a vital source of revenue, reader engagement, community connection. North America likes print. Today's webinar is not about abandoning it. It's about expanding new ways to keep print profitable. Let me tell you, print does rock. ENP has been printing proudly for 140 years, and I don't stop. I print every month a magazine, although it's just part of our ecosystem, our vodcasts, our social media, our website, our email communications, all the things we do, we still believe in the value of that. So now let's get into what we're talking about today. CherryRoad has been experimenting with a different production model using high-capacity digital printing technology to reduce those transportation costs, minimize waste, improve margins, and maintain newspaper delivery in markets that might otherwise become difficult to serve. Our goal today is to share this information with you and share what they've learned with you, and then see if these challenges can be eliminated and we can still serve using print. Now, before I get into our panel, and I love our panel, I want to do a commercial. Jeremy, you have joined me at the ING conferences over the years. I don't know if you're on their board, if you're a supporter. I am on the ING board, International Newspaper Group. These are the nerds and the people who make production happen at some of the media companies out there. A lot of them are like the top players. I don't know why I'm on the board because I never printed anything in my life. I still joke to this day, I don't even know what a lithoplate is. I come from the sales side, but I'm on their board because can I do this commercial, Jeremy? This is your webinar. You're paying for it.
Sure. Go
Because I
for
want to
it.
talk about the Operation All-Star Awards that I host. That's why I'm on the board because EMP sponsors it. There's 3 weeks left. So as we explore this operational space, I want to remind you that ING salutes the top operations people each year at this convention coming up in Houston this year. And I put up there a website you can go. If someone you know in operations, this is pre-press. This could be someone who's working in a very small market, making things happen. Even if they're working on these new experimental printers, we want to salute them. And there's even a QR code that'll take you to the page, and there's cash prizes. The winners of the categories, I think it's big market, small market, and distribution, will win $2,000 and get their travel expenses to go to the conference and learn more about technology. So if someone on your team has interest, or you want them to come and expand and be part of the conference and be recognized, please scan that QR code or just write down that address, and I'll do it at the end as well. Jeremy, are you mad at me for taking that time?
No, not at all. This is actually one of my favorite conferences to go to, and I strongly encourage people to participate and nominate your valued employees because it's a great
It's
great
fun.
conference.
I
A lot
love
of
these
fun.
people. Although it was in Indianapolis at Pacer Stadium, whatever they call it, for years, and now they're moving it to Houston. I used to love to go to the stadium for the meeting, so we'll see how it is when we move it to Houston this year. And it's in September. You might want to attend. Anyway, there's my commercial for ING because this is an operational conference. So the question first is, does our industry care about print? Well, we do a lot of these webinars. We do some very cool technical AI solutions for sales, for editorial, but this is one of the highest registrations we've had because, Jeremy, believe it or not, people still print. You're printing, right? I mean, with many digital assets as well. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, let me introduce Jeremy Gulbin. We all know him. I hope you do. He's been on my program a couple times. He's CEO of CherryRoad Media that came out of nowhere. Jeremy, could you just give us a quick background? You're one of America's largest local newspaper companies. You're in how many states right now, and how many operations do you have, sir?
So at this point, we have 102 newspapers in 19 different states, all formed over the last 5.5 years.
So this map is old, that from when you were on our webinar on my show.
Yeah, we had a little bit since then, but
It's amazing. And your history and background is technology, correct? Cherry
yeah.
Road is a
So
tech company.
yeah, our background is in technology, and this was kind of a new venture for us to see if we could bring the two things together of technology and local media, which we think is so important. And really, this project we're going to talk about is kind of the culmination of those efforts.
You have picked up at Cherry Road some of those that know my background is I was the guy teaching. I put one of the first newspapers online. It came from radio and TV in Portland, Maine. We registered Portland.com in 1998. Portland, Oregon didn't know there was an internet. I mean, this is how we go back. And then the NAA, said, got me involved in, digital pioneer and all that stuff. But I traveled to many cities to train reps what digital was, teach them, and then even teach the advertisers. And I went to a lot of the markets you now picked up. I mean, these were gatehouse towns that were previously Morris. And I always ask you this question, and I wonder if you remember the number. One of the favorite towns I used to go to is Dodge City, Kansas. That's now in the Cherry Road newspapers, correct?
It is.
And when you drive to Dodge City, I don't know if you've ever been there, there are trucks and trucks and trucks of cows that are going with you and empty trucks coming against you. How many cows meet their maker in Dodge City, Kansas every day? Do you know that number?
I'm not sure the number, but I've smelled it, but I'm not sure what the number is.
Believe it or not, it's somewhere north of 11,000 a day.
Wow.
It is. I don't know why I love to share that number because I learned it. I took a tour, and yes, there is something. I'm sorry, I'm boring our audience terribly, and please forgive me for doing that. But now I want to go back and then spend a little time with our next guest. And Joe, it's an honor to meet you, Joe Doherty. Oh, Doherty, I have that correct.
Doherty.
Oh, Doherty,
Yes.
Senior Sales Executive with SDS.
CDS.
Excuse me, CDS. I have a
Sorry.
typo. I have a typo. Please forgive me. CDS, one of the largest Xerox partners in North America. I don't know the company because I'm not part of that ecosystem, but you're a leader when it comes to this technology. Am I correct? Can you give us the quick overview of who you are, what you do, and your relationship with the news industry today, Joe?
So I started selling Xerox back in 1990, believe it or not. I know it doesn't look like that, but that's true. And I joined CBS 6 years ago, and been a great experience for me. We are one of the largest partners for Xerox in America. We have 9 locations throughout the country, and we offer a complete line of not just Xerox. We're a multi-branded dealer, so we have other brands as well. But in the production environment, Xerox is the lead product. That's the product we sell the most of.
Right. And that's going to be part of our dialogue because it's your machinery, correct me if I'm wrong, that is making all this new exciting technology work. Am I correct, sir?
Yes,
All right, good.
absolutely.
So let's bring it back to Jeremy. Jeremy, talk to me. I'm really interested right now in understanding more about the solution, but I'd rather first ask you about the problem. What changed? Why did you look at your your world of small market papers? Because that's mostly where you live right now, serving these communities that desperately need your content. And give us just some of that background of what made you say, hey, I got to make a change here right now.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at that map of our markets, most of them are pretty small, and most of our print runs are under 1,000 copies. And one thing about web press printing is it's never been very efficient for small runs. You're going to waste at least 1,000 copies to get to 1,000 sellable copies, which has always been a challenge. So over the last year and a half, going back to the first part of 2025, there's been some additional headwinds around that. We started last year talking about tariffs on newsprint, which everyone was extremely concerned about. It wound up not happening, fortunately. But then we've moved into a different crisis around newsprint with a number of mills shutting down over the last couple of months or last 6 or 8 months. And now we just have shortages, right? It's hard to even get newsprint. So we didn't know that when we started this, but we knew it was inefficient. We also knew there was probably going to be some tariffs around aluminum plates and ink, which did come to pass and have really significantly driven up the cost there. And it's hard to find skilled pressmen. And when you don't have good pressmen, you run a lot more waste because it takes longer for them to get everything dialed in. And that's been a big problem for us, particularly in one of our facilities in Minnesota. We also went with a strategy earlier on in our journey in this of trying to centralize our printing into 3 facilities, one in Kansas, one in Minnesota, one in Ohio, and then hauling the papers out to our remote markets, some of which are pretty remote. And that became problematic because of cost of fuel, maintenance, et cetera, before the cost of oil went up 40% this year, right? So all
Yeah.
of these challenges just make it less and less viable to print a newspaper of under 1,000 copies the old school way.
Uh, and you are connected. I remember I kind of like made you famous because you came out of nowhere. Suddenly you had purchased your first tranche of Gatehouse papers, the smaller ones. And then I got you on my show and everybody found you, but you have really committed to this industry. You're on boards, you go to conferences, you're visible, you share, which I love about CherryRoad. You don't, keep it to yourself. You share what you've learned, you share your challenges. How widespread do you believe what you just said is affecting everybody in the industry today, not just CherryRoad?
I think it's an issue for all small publishers. This whole newsprint situation, in my opinion, is not going to get any better. The price is going up and the shortages are occurring because there's less and less mills. And I don't really see that changing. It might ease a little bit, but it's not going to go back to where it was 3 years ago. And at the end of the day, web press printing is just not an efficient way to print these small run publications. I think because of those cost challenges, you're going to see more people cutting back on the number of pages they're printing or cutting their frequency, which is going to lead to a reduction of web press availability as some facilities start to shut down. And I think the future state is a dynamic where, we've used newsprint because it was a cheap, affordable, plentiful way of printing, and it's not going to be. It's going to be a vehicle for large publishers and commercial printers who have much higher profit margins and are able to pay a higher price for it. So I think this is a problem that, everybody's going to need to face here if you're running small runs.
When we took registrations, Jeremy, I don't know if you saw it, we asked those that register for to ask certain questions. Many people wanted to hear metrics. They told us, and we'll have a Q&A session where I reveal some of those, but people were saying, I run this many. Is there a sweet spot? I mean, when you look at the runs, Is there a metric that you say anything below this is where the challenge is? I mean, what is the critical number, Jeremy?
So when we started last year, we said that 1,000 would be the threshold where this financially made sense. With the increases in costs that have come over the last year, we think that's about 1,200 to 1,300 now. Also, there's a page limit constraint on this. The sweet spot for this is 12 to 16 page tabloids. You can get to 20 pages. If you go much higher than that, it becomes cost prohibitive, but also becomes very time consuming to try to run newspapers that are that big with this methodology.
Okay, so Joe, you hang on. I'm gonna get you in a moment. You got plenty of time now to because I'm going to stay with Jeremy because I'm trying to paint.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to lay out the canvas right now. So when did this happen? I kind of know because I remember talking to I remember Lee. Lee approached me last year and he mailed me. I'm sorry for the black. He mailed me some of these publications, and I still keep them in my office and I show them off. So it was last year, right? When you guys said, okay, that's it. You're like, what's that famous expression about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and is the definite without changing. So you decided last year to make the change. Tell us the story. Did you have a management meeting? Did you all get together? What happened? How did you know there was something else you could start doing?
Kind of interesting how this all came together. So last January, we did an all hands meeting to kick off the year. And we knew 2025 would be a tough year because of all the talk about consumable tariffs and price increases and all those challenges. So we met with our staff. We talked about, look, these constraints are going to force us to do more digital than ever. So let's think digital, digital, digital. And our staff pushed back pretty hard saying, why do you guys keep talking about digital? We're here in these communities every day. People want print products. And so we went away from that saying like, this is a real problem because our print products, not financially viable. And our local staff is telling us that's what we need to be selling. So that evening at our house, we actually received this pamphlet from our local town government. And my wife picked it up and she said, you're always complaining about the cost of things. Why don't you print your newspapers this way? And I said, oh, come on, that'll never work. You can't print a newspaper that way. But I got to thinking about it. And Antoinette, my wife, works here at CherryRoad as well. And she handles a lot of our copy releases. And so I said to her, you got that guy from CDS that you're always saying is such a great guy. Can you reach out to him and see if they have a solution that maybe we could do this with? And so that's how we got connected with Joe O'Doherty. And that's kind of how the whole thing got rolling with them.
Joe, he teed you up perfectly. It's almost like Vanna White flipped that letter. Joe, you work with organizations beyond this industry, but now you're becoming a student of this industry thanks to Jeremy. Am I right?
Absolutely. So, I've learned a lot in the last year plus.
I mean, you actually told me, and I have to say, you said you're a fan of my vodka, my vodka series too. You're starting, you're learning.
So it's the quote of the day that I enjoy the most.
Oh, on our 7 a.m. email. So let's get into this. CDS works with organizations with very, very complex print issues. What trends are you seeing that make publishers reconsider how and where they print today? Let's hear it from your side, the guy with the technology.
So just like Jeremy said, our technology, it's great, but it is a niche place. It's not going to replace offset printing when you get into the larger volumes. And so, we've seen it throughout the print industry, local printers that, started buying these products years ago and have been using them to run their shops, digital presses for quite a while now. So this is our product is a great way to produce these newspapers, produce them reliably with really nice quality. You see a lot of them, you see how nice they look compared to a newspaper. The paper's brighter, it's whiter. Also, the paper is the most common paper out there. It's easy to get. It's not expensive. So a lot of benefits to our technology in a certain environment.
All right. But this workflow that you, when someone is this thing big, small? I've got some pictures of the press itself. I mean, first of all, look how pretty these things are. When I saw them as a sales guy, I remember working in some small markets that CherryRoad took over, and the print runs were a little embarrassing. The ads, because I look at ads, right? And the colors were like not even there or not matching up, and everything seemed kind of washed out. It was hard to read. When someone did a color ad, it was hard to even read the words. These are gorgeous, gorgeous, pieces to me. What does the machinery look like? I think you sent me some pictures. Can I share
Yeah,
this?
you had one up. Yeah, so that's a example. That is our the PrimeLink 9265, and that's probably the product you have the most of, Jeremy, I believe by far. Um, and in some locations that you won't get, they have one machine. Some locations they have two. One location I think you have four machines. So that when you look at that picture, that's the full solution. It's funny when you started this and I saw those web presses running. I was thinking, wow, our product looks so small compared to that. So it's all in how you look at it, right? When you look at that product compared to a regular office printer, it's big. So, and this is the larger, the faster product, the Version 280 and I think you have about five or six of those right now. Um, so, the product fits in the right environment, and Jeremy knows more than I do exactly what the exact fit is. But we spend a lot of time going over volumes, looking at, how many papers, the size of the paper, the number of pages in a paper, all of that to try and come up with the exact solution.
It's fascinating that this machine. I mean, and again, it's not. I mean, when you go into these papers that have these press rooms, they're just so huge. This is it's really a very efficient way now to get that print product going. So, let's swing it back to Jeremy. Jeremy, you have placed how many of these machines at locations?
I believe we have 26 out there in the field right now.
Do you need Lee to correct you in the chat room, or you think it's 26?
I have 27.
27. I missed one. Look at
He's
that.
lost count. This is fascinating. Tell us
So
about it. Which locations have it? How do you cluster these? What's your? I mean, how do you get treat me like I'm an infant here. How do you get what the editorial people create into the mailbox or in front of the human being that reads it? Give us the lowdown.
So we tried to come up with really two different approaches to this. We have some of those larger V280s that are in our facilities that are more clustered, where we do a whole bunch of different papers. And then we use the 9265s in the more remote locations where, we might have three or four papers that we can print, within an hour's drive of each other. And we try to have redundancy where there's at least two machines in a market or at least close by. So if something goes wrong, we can fail over to the other machine. We've also looked at, in the case of where we have the four of the smaller machines in Garden City, Kansas, running a job across two machines at the same time to cut the amount of time it takes to run the job. So we've tried to come up with all sorts of different, creative ways of doing this. And it's just a very, very simple process. So, we get a PDF file from our design process. It goes to our centralized team in Hutchinson, Kansas, which is our main press facility. And the pre-press team there eyeballs the file, make sure it's correct. They do some steps to merge a CSV mail file into it so that we can print the addresses right onto the book as it comes out. And then they click the job and they run it at any one of those 27 machines out in the field. And so as a result, in the field, we don't need people who know how to do this or know how to print. Any office worker can be there, catch the papers. They come out in sort order. They look at the sorting. They put them in the right postal bin, and they take them to the post office. So it's a very efficient, easy process. And this is what it looks like when it comes out. It's a 12 by 18 sheet of 20-pound office paper that folds down to a 12 by 9 tabloid. It comes out stapled and it comes out labeled, as you can see right here, with the addresses on it. So very efficient process. And as I said, it works really well for relatively small runs of under 1,000, 12, 16 pages, ideally, because after that, it starts to just take a really long time to do it.
I just recently had a webinar with the folks from Publication Printers in Denver. They're a big supporter of ENP, and of course, they do magazines mostly. But the topic was different. They brought in CherryRoad, the big paper company, international, and the discussion was about supply and demand of newsprint versus the type of paper you use here. Are you sleeping better at night, Jeremy, knowing that you're not as newsprint driven
Uh,
because of,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. I
tell
mean,
me about that.
this is 20-pound office paper. It's in every copy machine in America. It's plentiful. It's very widely available. I mean, just yesterday we had a call with our plant manager in Hutchinson talking about how he's concerned he doesn't have enough paper, to get through the next several weeks till another order comes in. And as a result, we made a decision to on the spot convert two other papers to this format next week, to conserve the newsprint that we do have available to us. And I hung up the phone and I said, boy, if we hadn't done this a year ago, we wouldn't have enough paper to run that operation or print our papers. So I do sleep a lot better at night over it because we've kind of taken that constraint out of the process here.
All right. And the chat room is on fire. And Lee, you're doing an amazing job. I think there was a question, Joe, that I want to get to before it runs off of my screen. And it's about, there's a guy who's leasing, Steve is leasing a C9065. Are you familiar with that machine? And can he use that for this type of?
9065. That's the earlier generation. So that's a similar product that came prior to the 9265.
Steve's already got the
So
technology then. Go ahead.
yeah, as long as he has it configured properly with a booklet finisher, oversized high cap feeder, and a fiery on it, he should be in pretty good shape.
I have no idea what you just said, but it sounded really, really intelligent. But Jeremy, what I was fascinated is that like when we do our runs, correct me if I'm wrong, and you do print us. Lee said that, and we're proud. You don't use this technology because I'm a bigger run, and many pages. I get up to 90 to close to 100, 90 something or 100 sometimes. But you have to put the address labels on later with me, correct?
Yes.
It all comes out done, right?
It comes out stapled and labeled. And I should mention the cost is very predictable. So, for a 12-page book, it's about 58 cents all in, including labor and an allocation for the printer lease. And a 16-page is about 71 cents. So if you are running 10,000 copies, you'll say that's an extremely high price per copy. But if you're running 300 copies, that's a pretty good price, for the entire cost of the book.
Okay, Joe, it's to you now. What does Xerox technology play in making this possible? And I go ahead and use the terms you're using because there's a lot of operations people in here, and if I don't understand you, but make sure you're also speaking to those that don't know all the extra terms when it comes to this, because I think we got some publishers on here that simply outsource their printing and are saying, wait a second, this might be the solution for my 4 or 5 or 6 papers that I'm printing. So go ahead, take it away, Joe. Talk about the technology.
So the technology has evolved over the years, but basically these products came from high-speed printers, typically black and white from many years ago. Now they're digital presses. They sit on people's network. You can print to them, and they're driven by a server that gives you all the capabilities of layout, of using, all the features available: two-sided printing, stapling, folding, color controls, everything you would need to produce the paper. Like Jeremy was saying, when the paper comes off the machine, it's complete. It's ready to be distributed. Variable, the labels are being put on right on the paper using the variable data that's run through the fiery. So, and there's going to be even more, I believe, and Jeremy could probably talk to this more than I could. I think variable data is going to be a big part of this whole story in the future.
Yeah, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to talk about that. So that's very much a part of our future state, is to be able to print customized advertising per subscriber. And it's really bringing in like a direct mail concept into the newspaper. Because if you think about it, if you get a direct mail postcard, it's usually generic and it only is the advertising. But we can take an ad spot, we can put an ad that's specific to that subscriber with whatever the advertiser wants it to say. And I think it's going to be a very much more effective form of direct mail, which really opens up a whole nother revenue stream for us from an advertising perspective.
Kind of sounds like programmatic going back.
Programmatic for print.
Right. No, it's fascinating. And I love it because that's what it's all about. Mass media is gone. Targeted media is everything. Right now, our targeting to what we're discussing today is hyper local. But now you're talking about really hyper local because now, or particle marketing. You can say this subscriber is a male, so he'll get these kinds of ads. I mean, not that I'm trying to stereotype, but this could be this type of person has this traits. This neighborhood has this traits. This neighbor, that realtors are very neighborhood focused. So you could actually, based on where this thing's going, make sure that they have their listings from that neighborhood into the product, right? Is that how?
You could take it down to the individual. Like if a car dealer wants to sell a car to a specific person, they can tailor an ad to them that shows a pickup truck because they know that they previously bought a pickup truck.
When we Joe got people registering, a lot of people said, "I don't get this. An office copier cannot." They use that term, office. We had about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
An office copier. That's what they called it.
Yeah.
Cannot
No, I get it.
I mean, tell me why this is evolving and changing, and we have to rethink the whole. When we say Xerox, by the way, it's like saying Kleenex. Xerox is not the machine. Xerox is the company, but many people say that. How give these people a little shift in the paradigm, how things are changing, sir.
So the first thing I would say to, office copier or office printer, we sell those all the, that's a big part of what we do, selling office copiers, office printers, multifunction devices. These are production presses. This is part of Xerox's production line. It's one of the broadest lines in the industry, and it's not an office copier. It's a digital press. It's a
All right.
digital press that's a lot smaller than an offset press that can fit into an office environment. So, when Jeremy's talking about how has these machines all over the country, these are small offices that he's putting them in. So you don't have all the resources of a big warehouse to try and keep a offset printing facility running, or all the cost of, outsourcing it and paying to ship the offset prints back.
Jeremy, I want you to help me with this because Catherine asked this question to just host and panelists, so Lee couldn't grab it and respond. How about the extra weight? Is there a change in postal costs? Is it more efficient when you look at the crazy, wacky world of USPS? I mean, how about the postal costs with this type of?
So interestingly enough, the postage is actually slightly less, we're finding, than for the broadsheet papers, because even though the paper's heavier, there's less less of it. And also we're finding that these seem to move through the postal system more efficiently than the traditional newspapers, because I think they can better go through the machines, whereas a broadsheet paper might get stuck, get thrown on the side, and have to be manually dealt with. So no real issues from a cost perspective. And anecdotally, when we bring these to post offices, the feeling from the staff is very positive, because this is just easier for a postal worker to deal with than a broadsheet newspaper is.
Are they? I've heard horror stories about the relationships between sometimes the people in operations in a city and the post office when they're delivering. I did a webinar a couple of years ago about just how they have to band it just right to make the post office happy. And maybe I'm speaking beyond your knowledge. Maybe your ops people, you have amazing people that work with us to get our work done. Are they happier at the post office when they see this product? I mean, that's like, you got it. Not that we have to make them happy, but you really do, right?
I from what we've heard from some post offices, yes, everyone is happier with this than the old school product.
All right. Now, someone's asking about advertising technology, and I think that's a valid question because you brought up personalization or targeting. Are you getting into very cool ad building tools that now meet this brand? Because the ads are so vibrant now. They're so beautiful, so much different than running them in small operation, in the smaller, the printing. Are you investing in new technology for the ad building, Jeremy?
We haven't gotten anywhere with the ad building itself yet, but we are focused on the ability to do this type of ad customization. So we have our local road circulation system, which powers all of our subscriptions. That's built to also be able to handle the inventory of what ad would go to a specific subscriber. And then we work with the Fiery software that comes, with the Xerox printers. And today we can do this with a little bit of manual intervention, to get an ad spot to be custom or variable. We want to get to where that's all automated so no one needs to touch it, which is the next project that we're working on. Then I think we'll come around with some better ad technology once we've got the meat and potatoes here working.
One of the questions we had going into this was, and I think it may have been someone who operates presses and doesn't want to, but it was like, I understand in some of these CherryRoad markets, this is what I'm not doing it verbatim, but I'm going to give you the gist of it, that you've raised the price to the advertiser because of this. And has this changed how you're charging for ad space, or are you still using the same metrics in these markets?
So we had previously moved away from column inches to modular pricing before we started making this switch. And we took the position that a quarter page is a quarter page, and we're not going to change the price, even though it's less column inches. And the argument was it's a better looking ad, it's crisper, it's going to stand out better. And what's the difference? It's still a quarter of a page. So we took that position. I don't think we've had a lot of angst about it. So it seems to not be an issue.
I'm going to put up a slide, if you don't mind, that Jeremy, I'm going to stay with you on this, that Lee shared with me before the webinar. Can you walk us, if you haven't seen this, my apologies, maybe you have to take a look at it, but talk to me about this case study in Arkansas, because I love it because it really shows real savings, real numbers. Are you familiar with this case study, Jeremy?
Oh, I'm very familiar with it because I did it. So yeah,
okay, go ahead. Walk us through it.
This is the first place we rolled out, which was in Arkansas. So we were hauling our papers from Hutchinson, Kansas to Independence, Missouri, and then from Independence, Missouri down to Arkansas, which was a lot of miles. And we realized that we could put two of the smaller C9265s in, at that time, 2 locations. We've since migrated it to 1 location, and print the 6 papers that we have in those markets there instead. And they range in size from 200 to 750 copies. And our hauling cost before the price increases for fuel of this year were $744 a week. So that's about $39,000 a year of cost that we were able to eliminate. And that's a big deal because these papers' gross revenue is probably about $300,000. So that's a huge change to the bottom line in these markets.
We got people now in the chat room asking specific questions for what will it cost me with this run, this page count, what I'm paying, right? I'm going to let Lee handle those, okay? But another slide that I loved, and I looked at it, that Lee provided me before this webinar, was this one. This really does show anybody that is now in the chat room trying to figure out the metrics. You gave this, is this pretty much accurate of what you're looking at per copy?
Pretty much. That's a fully loaded cost. And the way that you can jigger this is by using black and white pages versus color pages, because the color impressions are much cheaper. So that's kind of our standard, is the 12 and the 16 with 4 black and white pages. You could do more black and white if you want it to be lower cost. You could do all color if you've got the need for it. But take the number of copies you need and multiply it by that cost per copy, and that's your answer.
Okay, now treat me like I'm an infant here. And what I mean is, because I remember the good old days when someone shut down a press, the town went nuts because jobs were lost. But now the paradox is it's hard to find people who want to work presses today, correct? I mean, it's a whole different world. I'm going to ask you point blank, have you had operational benefits? Have you shut down? And if you don't want to answer this question, Jeremy, you can slap me silly, please forgive me. But have you had did you shut down a few presses because of this and save some money and get some real estate back? And may I ask that question to the senior executive?
So we shut down our press in Minnesota, our web press in Minnesota.
Why?
We were having a hard time finding staff. And as a result, they were wasting, I think they said 5,000 copies to get to 1,000 sellable copies, which, is just an insane ratio. And so it's in a small town. It's in, not really near a major area. It was just really hard to find people who could do the work. And so we moved all of those titles over to this process back in, I think it was April of last year. So there's some savings there, for sure. Then our Ohio and our Kansas facilities, we're working on how do we keep those going, because I don't want to lose that capability. And once you shut it down, it's going to be gone forever. So we're looking at, can we print, digital covers and use, high bright insides and use a stitch and trim
Wow.
operation to put them together. So that's kind of where our thought process is there for our old technology.
I'm going to ask you more about numbers because I'm a numbers guy. Let's go back to like quarter 1 of this year. Again, remind the audience of how many your total company, how many operations there are, all that and more. Can you give us a number of how much you saved profit margin by making this bold move because your wife showed you something that came in the mail and said, why can't you print like this, and woke you up and made you go down this road and turn Joe's life around? I mean, because Betty, this is a funny story. Basically, you got something in the mail and said, I could do this. So what was your savings? I'm sure you live by the quarter. What did you get back?
Yeah. So I did an analysis at the end of the first quarter, and at that time we had converted 44 markets to this process, and I compared the profit margins on the converted markets versus the non-converted markets, and the markets we print this way performed 8 percentage points better than the traditional markets. So very anecdotal, but real bottom line savings there.
Joe, I got questions for you, but you're gonna have to stand by. I'm sticking with Jeremy now because I
That's
really
fine.
want to get into this. So I've been saving the $1 billion question here, Jerry. How is the local markets feeling about this? For years, we're talking for years, for maybe over a century, they were holding a different product in their hand. For decades, the advertisers were used to buying a certain type of product. Give me some markets. What has the local feedback been on A, the community side, B, the business side? And I know you're checking it, so give us the real
Yep.
story.
So when we started doing this last year, we went out to Arkansas and then to Minnesota, where we did this the next round, and we held a community meeting in each location, and we explained it to them, we showed it to them. When I verbally described what we were doing, including to our own staff, they looked at me like I had two heads. But when they actually saw the product, the reaction was a lot different. And we made a decision that when we launched this in Arkansas, if it doesn't fail miserably, we're just going to go plow forward head first and do this. So we kept on moving. After that, we realized, you know what? There's really not that much pushback on this. I don't think we even need to go through this whole road show to go to every market to do this. I think we can just push it out there. And the feedback from most consumers is that the pictures are better. It is easier to read because of the crispness of the print and the contrast with the white paper. Advertisers like the ads better because they're much better looking than the best web press ad could be. We get a little bit of, this is not a newspaper, I don't like it. But that's going to happen, right? And I can't run the business for the minority of people who are saying that. And I was in Ardmore, Oklahoma last week, where we've converted our 5-day-a-week paper, the Ardmorite, over to this format. And I asked the staff, what's the reaction? And they said, we're getting 5 compliments for every 1 complaint, which in the newspaper business, I think is a pretty good ratio.
A lot of trips to Ardmore. I'm going to go off
Mike,
topic.
I want to add one little thing to that.
Yeah, sure, Joe.
One of the things that we've been able to do, and that we're happy to do for anyone, is actually send us your file, and we'll send you some sample prints. And they're using them to give to their salespeople to show the advertisers what their new ads will look like. And I think that we did that for Jeremy. We've done that for a few other people, and it helps a lot because you can actually see it right in front of you.
And you can sell the sales team on it as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, because I bet there's a lot of pushback. Okay, Jeremy, I'm sorry, I got to ask you. Culture is always the issue in our industry, right? What's that old joke? How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is 1, but the light bulb has to want to change in the first place. And people have accused this industry of being caught in neutral on many issues and not adopting technology. Have you had trouble selling this to your team?
So we did another all hands meeting a few weeks ago, actually. And I was blown away with how positive the reaction was to this. And again, when people see it, they have a totally different reaction than when we're talking about it. People were positive. They were excited. They feel like the community is excited about it. Another initiative we're going to do this summer is to look to, well, 2 things: an automated pagination process that would allow this to be, much more efficient to produce. But because of that, to look at our weekly papers and look to take them to 2 days a week, expanding the frequency. And I thought our folks would push back on that. but they've been very positive about it, excited about it actually. And I think a lot of it's because it says we're hearing them when they talk about how important print is in their communities, and B, we're investing in a way to keep print going, rather than droning on about digital, which I think they're tired of hearing.
I was going to mention that you made it shift simply in the product. You look at someone like Walter Hussman, you know the story where he tried to convince an entire state, and he did, that he gave them all iPads, and there was pushback there. But there's so many ways we must change. We have to change in order to find that sustainability. I'm going to swing it over, if I may, to Joe for a second. Joe, um, what's been what are all these successful deployments across these markets now? You got to be just cheering. I bet the senior management's going to give you a raise because you have found a whole new market for some of the equipment that you're a salesman, you sell equipment, and you have found a solution to a challenge of
So I was just about to correct you, say no, we sell solutions, not just
there.
equipment.
You're a salesman. Yeah, I got you. Understand the solution-based sales, needs-based sales. Great. So what is the commonality across these markets with this new technology, in your opinion, Joe?
So it's everything we've been talking about. There's shorter runs, being able to print it locally. We call it on-demand printing. You had all those. I was listening to you talk about all the things you called stuff in your industry. Well, in our industry, when we compare ourselves to offset printing, it's on demand. Well, what do Jeremy? How many papers do you need to print this week? You can print 400. You can print 500. You can print 700. You can print once a week, twice a week, whatever. It's the on-demand capability. It's the capability of putting a product like ours in your office, not in a big warehouse. Um, it's the reliability of the product. Right now I did a quick look just to see where we're at because Jeremy, we've been at this for almost a year and a half now, and we're producing, and these are 12 by 18, right? So one image on our machine is 2 pages, 2 newspaper pages. And right now we're doing a 1.5 million 12 by 18 impressions a month,
You
which
track that. You can track. I mean, again, treat me like an infant. You're tracking his machines.
so we're tracking everything. We can see the level of the toners in the machine. We automatically ship toner. We've worked really closely with Jeremy to come up with a solution, and so much of this solution was about solving the problem. And the biggest problem that I've heard in your industry, every time anyone talks about it, is costs are out of control. The solution we're offering is a guaranteed cost. We guarantee the cost for the equipment, for the service, for the supplies. We include everything except for the paper you have to put in the machine and the staple cartridges. You do have to buy those. But Jeremy's got that figured out exactly what the cost is with that.
Uh,
So we're offering a new way, a different way. There obviously people have to make a change, but if they make that change, they're going to have a lot more control and maybe sleep at night because they can understand exactly what their costs are going to be, and they can project that out for the full 5 years, which is the term of the contract.
Meinard in the chat room asked a really valid question. I'm going to start with you, Joe, and then see what Jeremy has to say. He says, "What does maintenance and emergency repair look like?" I mean, and I want to ask Jeremy then versus now, because when a press goes down, sometimes you're flying someone in from Europe. Joe, do these puppies go down a lot? I mean, give me an honest answer.
So with that, it's funny. We looked at stats because there was a couple of machines that were given some trouble, and Jeremy, we meet on a regular basis and go over all these details to stay on top of everything. And our uptime is, I think, in the 98%. So do they require service? Yes, they do require service. There's parts that need to be replaced on the machines, but it's same day, next day service. Jeremy's talking about the redundancy of having multiple machines. One goes down, you can still print on the other machine. So you have to take all those into account. But we're
Yeah,
printing 1.5 million images every month, and we're doing it pretty reliably. And I don't want you to take my word for it. I think Jeremy can answer
There you
that
go,
better than I
Jeremy.
can.
How's
so
it?
two things I'll add to that. First of all, remember that there is no cost for maintenance. It's baked into per impression charge, which is part of the 58 or 71 cents I quoted, along with the paper and the staples, right? So that's the all-in cost. We have had machines go down. It will happen. They're mechanical. The service has been really good about getting out there to fix it. We haven't had any meltdowns where we couldn't produce papers. I'll knock on wood as I say that. But we also we're pretty vigilant about having redundancy just in case, right? At least two machines in a location or else nearby that we can fail over to.
If someone is interested in this product, do they go directly to Joe or go to you, Jeremy, or to Lee? I mean, what is the relation? Am I asking a bad question? What is the relationship between CherryRoad? What do you provide? What does Joe provide? And how are you working in partnership with this to solve this industry crisis?
So when we started doing this, I said to CDS, "Hey, do you think we could make this available to others?" And they said, "Yes, but we need your expertise because we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time we talk to someone." So we've agreed that anybody who wants to explore this or do this, we're happy to jointly spend time with them and educate them on and work together to get them off and running with it.
So Lee is a good contact. He was in the chat room to talk to.
Sure, Lee would be a good place to start. Yep.
All right, and we're going to make sure he proudly says that, and he can give you the margins, the pricing, and all that and more. All right, the big questions that came in. We're getting near the end of the journey, by the way. We're going to be wrapping this up in the next few minutes. So get into the chat room now. Ask any questions we have not answered, or any concerns that you might have. But it all boiled down when I looked at all the, the hundreds of people who registered and the questions they had. They kept saying, "Am I appropriate? Am I appropriate? Am I appropriate?" Can you give me a quick, and I have a slide to go with it because I believe I have if this slide does not match your thoughts to this question, just slap me silly there, Jeremy. What types of publishers should be taking a look at this model today? And hopefully if I put up the first one, go ahead. Am I hitting it right?
Yep. If you're far away from a web press, this is something you should be thinking about.
What's the next thing? Is this the sweet spot or is that changed?
Yep. If you're selling under 1,200 copies, and I'm going to say selling, not printing, a lot of people will print 2,000 because the printer has 1,000 minimum. You're going to want to right size this to exactly what you need. So look at exactly what are your number of subscribers, what are your number of single copies that you're selling.
All right, so if there's a proximity issue is number one. Number two is there's the sweet spot, 1,200. Lee, I think Lee put in 1,500 in the chat, but it's between 12 and 1,500.
12 and 1,500, yep.
Right, three. Is this true?
Well, that's where we're going to. We're going to automate this entire production process, including design, so that you can input your content, run it through a system, and have it spit the paper out at the printer. So if that's something that's appealing to you, it's something that you should definitely be looking at.
And you believe, and I love this one, you believe strongly that this could be really good in weaving indirect mail into your newspapers.
I do, because it's really kind of advertising 101, right? Like if you put an ad next to something that's compelling, you're going to get much more attention at it. And I also, watch that there's a lot of, private equity investment in commercial printers right now, because direct mail is seen as a differentiator versus the online, crowdedness, and it's very hard to get your message through. So if we can bring like you said earlier, the programmatic aspects of online advertising into print, that seems like a pretty compelling advertising story to tell.
Take us 5 years from now, Jeremy. Where are we with this? I mean, because technology is just going nuts. AI is helping us get through these challenges. Where are we in 5 years, in your humble opinion?
Well, what I would love to see is a scenario where these machines are all over the country, thousands of locations, I guess. We've got a situation where publishers are working together with their neighboring publishers to leverage these machines, either sharing them or for redundancy purposes. I'd like to see the scenario where the regional and national publications just print locally on these local machines. And what if we could take it a step further, where we the local paper, get someone to pay us to subscribe, and then we upsell them to subscribe to other publications that can be printed locally and delivered to them. Like I said, the layout and pagination is fully automated, and then we're using this variable printing to really act as like a direct mail house. So I know that's a kind of a bold vision, I guess you could say, but I like to think big. So,
Joe, final question for you. What advice do you give a publisher who believes they're at a production crossroads right now? What final advice do you give as the guy with the machine, and Jeremy here with the expertise. What advice would you give them when they're sitting on the fence?
I would say, just give me a call. Let's have a conversation. It is about the solution. It is about the numbers. It's about, does this work for you? And I'm willing to talk to anyone to go over that. We'll provide a spreadsheet. Once we spend a lot of time getting to know exactly what the environment is and coming up with a solution to fit it. And that's one of the nice things about our product line is we have a lot of different solutions. So we should be able to help people find a new way to produce their newspapers and take control of it, print it locally, and hopefully
I
save a lot of money.
as an old sales warhorse, forgot to do a CTA slide, a call to action with maybe Lee Batchlett's picture and his email address. So I'm going to say it. Please, Jeremy, don't be mad at me. I should have done that, but I did all the other slides and forgot that. Lee Batchlett's email address, for those of you who are not in the chat room or ignoring it, is lbatchlet, BACHLET, at cherryroad.com. That's lbatchlet at cherryroad.com. He threw his mobile number in there, but I'm not going to do that because this will be watched by hundreds and hundreds over the months and weeks to come. And I'll make sure that on the landing page, we do have have that there. Jeremy, may I do one more plug, sir, for the Operations All-Stars, since there's so many ops people on this one? Are you sure you're not upset about that?
Sure, go for it.
It's a great conference, but more importantly, if you know someone in the ops industry who deserves recognition, maybe some cash, and maybe get a chance to go hobnob with other ops peoples, just head to enp.press/allstars or scan that QR code, or just email me and I'll turn you on to it, because we're talking small markets. Medium, large, doesn't matter. But if you're involved in the ops sector, you know someone who's working in the industry, someone should nominate Joe here, because it can be someone on the vendors, or Joe, you should be nominating some of your customers or what have you. But by all means, please help us salute those in the industry that are keeping our wacky world of print working. And I want to thank our guests, Jeremy and Joe. Joe, would you like to give your email address, since you're okay answering questions? You said, go ahead.
So first initial, last name without the apostrophe at cds-yes.com.
CDS-yes. That's pretty cool. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you again for your time. We thank you for being part of this broadcast. We thank you for your interest in our industry, and we thank our guests for their valuable time. There'll be more of these educational webinars in the months to come, and EMP always appreciates you being part of our world. Joe, Jeremy, thanks for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mike.
Take care.
Okay, came back strong.